The first end user is myself. So usually I write something because I need it or I want to try it. The first step is that it has to please me first. The biggest challenge, supporting them and making sure that they work for everybody in all the platforms, that's the challenge. I really became passionate about music when I was 15, when I was able to start electric guitar and plug it into all sorts of effects. So very early I was interested in the sound. Axiom with my guitar multi-effect processor is the result of almost 20 years of work. And I've been thinking about it for years. Just for the amp simulation and distortion part, it took me more than 5 years just to get it the way I wanted it. If you like what you do, there's a chance somebody else in the world is going to like it too. So keep doing it until somebody hears about it and try as much as you can. Never stop. Just do it.
Hello everyone, this is Ray Williams from IMSTA, and today we have another episode of Meet the Developers. We are today talking with Guillaume Jeulin from Blue Cat Audio, and I've known Guillaume for quite a while. He is somebody that we've been working with for quite a while and has been a member of IMSTA and participated in many shows. So Guillaume, hello, how are you, my friend?
Hello, I'm very well. What about you?
Oh, I'm doing okay. And today we're gonna just talk about your life, talk about how you got into programming, talk about where Blue Cat came from, and what were your ideas behind some of the great products that you've made. So let's kind of go back to baby Guillaume. Tell us a little bit about your childhood. Where are you from? I know you're from France. Could you describe your childhood and in particular how it relates to music?
So I was born and I live in France, and I started playing music quite early. Actually, I think I started playing guitar. I took guitar lessons when I was 5. I really became passionate about music when I was 15, when I was able to start electric guitar and plug it into all sorts of effects. And so very early, I was interested in the sound and all the audio effects you could apply to the guitar. That's how I started being interested into that.
So you were playing electric guitar, or I mean, you weren't using an acoustic for this?
I was playing an electric guitar at the time. So I started with the classical guitar, but at 15 I bought an electric guitar, and then I never quit.
Uh-huh. So were your parents into music? Was there a lot of music around the house?
Yes, my father was actually playing the piano, so I could spend hours just listening to him on Sundays when he was playing. And I think my mother always would have been happy to learn the guitar, but she couldn't. So that's the reason why they proposed me to take some lessons quite early.
I'm curious, what kind of music was your dad playing on Sunday?
Classical music, a lot of Chopin and that kind of stuff.
Mm-hmm. Did you ever get a bug for classical music yourself and the piano?
Yes, I love the piano. Actually, I have a piano at home too. I'm a very bad player, but I like playing piano. I love the sound of the piano and the sensations you get when you play. And I love acoustic instruments actually.
But you went for a guitar. So were you playing in bands as a kid, as a teenager?
As a teenager, actually, I started playing electric guitar because I was involved in a big band at my music school. So I started with jazz. It was quite tough to start with that. And then I had a couple of cover bands with friends, and I started writing my own music too. And I keep playing today as much as I can.
So in your childhood, did you have a lot of friends around that were into music also like you?
Not only on guitar, actually, had some good friends drumming and playing piano and all sorts of instruments. But I think I was the only one really interested in effects. So I was the one programming all the multi-effects my friends had. They didn't want to touch that stuff.
So these multi-effects, tell me a little bit about them. What are we talking about? Guitar pedal type effects?
Yeah, well, that was in the 90s, so that's yes. So the early digital effects for guitar, like Boss GT 1000 or something like that. Can't remember the exact names, but there were all sorts of effects.
You must have had some kind of guitar hero or people you look up to, emulated. Who were some of your guitar playing heroes at the time?
Quite many actually, but the first one was Nuno Betancourt from Extreme. I think that's the one who made me pick up electric guitar. And then I discovered all the instrumental guitarists like Steve Vai, Joe Satriani, Eric Johnson. I was a big fan of Eric Johnson at the time, and also some French guitar players that nobody knows outside of France.
How dedicated were you? We're talking about hours of practice. How much time did you spend playing the guitar?
At the time, I don't know. I mean, I had to go to school too, so I guess a couple of hours a day, maybe 1 or 2 hours at least every day, and maybe more on the weekends. It was really a true passion. It's still a passion. I don't have that much time, but as soon as I have some free time, I pick up a guitar and just play. Or yeah.
Mm-hmm. And what about school? What were you studying, or what were you interested in terms of school and post-secondary?
I think I was interested in many different things, but I got involved into math and physics pretty early, more physics than math. The thing I liked a lot was to try to understand the way the world works and put that into equations so that you can predict the future or and see how it's going to work. Yeah, and understanding the physics was really something very interesting for me.
Mm-hmm. So did you pursue physics?
Yeah, I did kind of major in math and physics, mostly science in general. But I've always been interested in many different types of science. So I studied then the general engineering, and then I discovered also computer science.
So tell me about your computer. What was your first exposure to computers? How did that happen?
So it was actually my grandfather. It was one of his hobbies. So he came from electronics, and so I think in the early 80s he might have discovered computers just because of at the time, you know, you were building your own computer with the electronic components, so maybe that's the way it happened for him. And so very early he showed me his computers and how to use them. And actually he's the one who taught me how to write programs in BASIC. A long time ago. So that's the way I discovered computers.
We all started with BASIC. I remember BASIC very well with the Commodore 64. Did you by chance ever have a Commodore 64?
No, actually, my grandfather had a Tandy, you know, the Radio Shack thing. And so every time he bought a new one, he gave my family the old one. And so I had a couple of Tandy computers. The first one was the TRS-80. I remember it was really a very small thing. Well, a big thing, but a very small processor.
Yeah. When in retrospect, looking back, what were some of the things you were programming back then?
I think mainly some very basic video games. I mean, the kind of stuff you can write with BASIC. Because the thing is, since we had the older computers from my grandfathers, usually there was almost no video game we could buy anymore, and so we had to. My brother and I had to write our own games.
Wow! And how old are you guys at this time?
Between 8 and 12 years old, but you know, it was really basic stuff, just writing some circles on the screen and very basic shapes, and it was so slow anyway, you couldn't do much.
So you're already, by the time you're playing with that band at 15, you'd already had a lot of exposure to computers.
Yeah, actually, I think I stopped writing software. Well, I won't call it software, but programs in BASIC quite quickly, because then you came the PCs and machines where you had to write in assembly to get really some nice stuff done. So I didn't pursue programming at the time. So I was a computer user, but that's it. No programmer.
So how did you make the transition to computer programming and computer science? Did you do that in school?
Yeah, I was at school. Actually, almost at the end of my studies, I had a couple of courses for computer science, very basic things. But at the end of my studies, I started working for a startup company where I really learned how to program, and I also got into DSP at the time. I learned both at the same time almost.
Really? So what kind of company was that using DSP and algorithms?
So it was a company that was doing software for to do video effects for shows. You know, that was at the end of the 90s. It was the beginning of VJing, video DJs. And so they wanted to extend that to audio, to be able to add some audio effects and also analyze audio to generate pictures and video effects to be in relationship with the music being played. They took me as an intern at the end of my studies, and well, nobody knew anything about audio, so I had to start from scratch and learn and see how it worked.
Wow! But you knew about audio, but you didn't also know about programming and DSP. You learned on your own there.
Yeah, I had to learn mostly on my own, but we had a few friends who helped me get into it, and they sent me a couple of articles. I didn't understand anything at the beginning, but well, after a couple of months, I ended up doing some filters, some modulation effects, and some that kind of stuff.
Wow! And then what happened next? Did you continue with this company? Did you move to another company?
So, well, it was the early age of the internet here. And so we had in 2000, there was a big internet boom where all most of the startups collapsed. So I moved to other companies. But I always kept doing DSP in the background because I was working for several big software companies in France. But it was not as fun as doing DSP. Quite quickly, when I got back home, I started doing some more DSP again, just for the fun of it.
Now, for those who are watching who probably don't fully grasp what you mean by DSP, could you explain it in the most layman terms?
Yeah, so the DSP means the digital signal processing. And for us audio guys, it's all the algorithms that you can use to modify or analyze the sound. So it's really processing the sound.
And how deep are you? I mean, you write your own algorithms, I assume?
Yeah, definitely, yeah. But, well, of course, you copy from others at the beginning, and you have to learn at some point. And there are many things that you won't reinvent, like most filters and, for EQs, and most people use always the same algorithms.
How much of DSP programming is science and how much of it is art?
But science is an art, right?
Ah.
And art is a science too.
Okay.
For sometimes.
Okay.
So I think like anything which is creative, yeah, definitely there's a part of art because you choose, you make some decisions based on the way it sounds. So anyway, or the way the software is going to look like. So there's some artistic decisions in there for sure. Anyway, I mean, the aim is that artists will use the software.
Right. But you're kind of the arbiter of the tools that they would use. So how do you know when the algorithm sounds good?
Because I feel it sounds good first. So because I'm the first user of my software. And actually, I still have a couple of plugins here that are still just for me. Maybe they will be released one day, but the first end user is myself. So usually I write something because I need it or I want to try it. And the first step is that it has to please me first. And of course, then I will ask some other people. But until I like it, I will have to keep writing it and modifying it until I'm fine with it.
I imagine at this time in our technological sort of advances and the stages we're at, how much limitations are built into the actual tools themselves, the computers, the CPUs, the operating systems? How much limitations does that introduce into your DSP programming or construction?
Nowadays, I mean, the limits are so high that I don't think it has such an impact these days. We have computers are so powerful that you can do pretty much anything you want. Of course, you have to optimize, because if people want to use your plugins on hundreds of tracks, well, there will be some limits. But I mean, compared to where we were 20 years ago, it's paradise today for DSP developers. I remember spending like 2 or 3 months just trying to optimize a chorus effect 20 years ago when I started, and now you wouldn't see the difference. I mean, it's just tiny percentage of CPU usage. You don't even notice it, so who cares?
You know, like when you're playing guitar or playing sports, you know, a lot of professional athletes still practice. A lot of professional musicians practice and take lessons. How much learning do you continue to do in DSP, and how much learning is there to do in DSP? Or have you already conquered Mount Everest? You're at the top.
Oh no way. I mean, that's the kind of stuff you may learn for your whole life, just like music or any other topic. Well, I definitely learn on a daily basis. Every time I write something new, every time I'm trying to improve an algorithm, I'm learning, either by reading papers or just by trying to solve problems. And no, I think it's never the end. You always keep learning.
So tell us a little bit about Blue Cat. How did that get started for you? When did you decide to start making your own plugins?
As I said earlier, I had a day job, which was fun, but not as fun as writing code for sound and music. And so I started maybe a bit more than 20 years ago. I started writing my own plugins at night and during the weekends, just for fun. And also because I wanted to be able to use my own software to play and record music. So that was a lot of fun. When I had my first plugin ready, I think at the time it was DirectX plugin, a format that has disappeared since. But yeah, the first one was really, it was a chorus. And actually, I think the free chorus we have today still available. It's just the same algorithm. It hasn't changed much in 20 years. And so when it was ready, I put it on the internet just to share with people for free. And some people started to download it and send me feedback. So I was very happy. Then I do a few other free plugins. And one day a guy sent me an email and asked me for a new feature. And he said, okay, you know, I'm ready to pay for this feature if you add it to the plugin. So, well, please tell me if it's possible. And so I did it, and it was my first sold plugin. I remember it was for $5 at the time. And then since it got more and more famous, some people started to pay for other plugins I did, and that's the way the whole thing started. At the beginning, it was only a very small revenue, and then I was able to buy some music instrument and audio equipment thanks to these plugins, and then it really became a company, and here we go.
And where did the name Blue Cat come from?
So it's actually related to music. At the time, I think, yeah, when I started, well, no, it was a bit before. Yeah, when I was a student, I had a cat which liked playing. Well, he liked when I was playing music, and he was trying to play the guitar when I was practicing, just trying to scratch the screen, the strings. And at the time, I had my first demo ready, and I was looking for a name. And it was well, blue is a color I like. It was some kind of blues, so the blue color was definitely the right one for that. And since I had this cat trying to play music with me, I said, okay, well, why not Blue Cat? And that's the way the name came. And when I started my company a couple of years after, I was scratching my head for a name, and I've always been very bad at finding names. And some people told me, oh, but you already have a name, so keep the same name as your nickname for your music. And that's the way it started. I just added audio at the end to make it more obvious.
So what was the first plugin that you did that was commercially available, that you put a price tag on it?
Yeah, it was I think the DP Meter Pro. So the peak meter that was able to record the levels as automation values or send MIDI events. and that because that's the one the guy asked me for new features for it, and so then it became a product. That was the first one.
And how do you prepare for something like that? Because that seems very scientific. You're giving very precise measurements. A lot of people are going to be reliant on your measurements. How did you prepare yourself to make such a tool?
Well, at the beginning, it was just trying to experiment with the calibration, with the ballistics, and how I wanted to understand how to write an algorithm to have a very nice looking and useful meter. But then I bought a couple of books to see how people use it in the pro audio world, and that's how I did in the end some other measurements, like also you have the RMS, you have the K scales, which I discovered after, and also the crest factor, which is important to understand the dynamics of the tracks. So it came just by learning from either customers or from books or articles.
Were you ever into synthesizers? I know you love guitar, but did you ever dabble in synthesizers?
Yeah, well, I do play the piano, so it's not a synthesizer, it's an acoustic instrument, but I do like the vintage synthesizers, like the Rhodes, the B3 organs. So I actually use some virtual instruments for that. And I also play drums, so I use some virtual drums instrument because I have an electronic kit to use to trigger that. So yeah, I'm more into guitar because I've been playing guitar for a longer time. But I do like, I mean, especially nowadays with the plugins, you can do whatever sound you want.
You make the first product, which is DP meter.
Yep.
And what is it like when you start seeing, the first sale, second sale, the first sort of comments, the positive comments? How does that feel?
Well, it feels good because you've created something that is not only useful to you, but to other people. And they find it so useful that they are ready to pay. So it was like $5 at the time, but still, I mean, you're earning money from something you've done by yourself, all by yourself. It was quite different from what I was doing in other companies where it was a bigger company. So we were doing some products that were with like thousands of people. So it's not only you. Here it's just, well, you wrote something and somebody likes it and he wants to pay for it. So that's great.
As you're going into the plugin business, there are other plugin companies that are out there. A lot of times, when we see a plugin, of course, now we've seen a lot of plugins. We always ask, does the world need another one of these? Did you ever have any doubt, or did you ever ask yourself, does the world really need this, or should I just let somebody else do it? Did you have any doubt at all about you making a contribution to this business?
I think there's always room for another plugin. It's just like guitars; you always need one more. Just because I mean we're all different individuals. Even if I'm writing an EQ like my neighbor, it will probably be different because I think different. I have other ideas. So it might not revolutionize the way people think about EQs, but well, that's going to be mine, and it's going to be exactly the way I want it. So. Sometimes I have doubts that people may find something useful. Like, for example, the connector plugin, which was released earlier this year. Actually, I've had it in my lab for like 2 years. I've been using it for myself. And at first, I didn't think I would release it as a software for other people. But I said, okay, well, it's been here, it works. So let's see and let's release it for maybe some people who want to use it. And it was actually quite successful. So you see, sometimes you're wrong. I was not in doubt that it could be useful because I was using it. I was in doubt that maybe some other people would use it, but I was just wrong.
Now let's talk about that, because that's a perfect segue. Connector. The idea is to as the name suggests, connect one DAW to perhaps another DAW, even one computer to another computer. Why? I got to ask you, why did you need it?
So it actually happened during the COVID thing. So we were all locked down at home. And I have a good friend who plays the piano and synthesizers. I've been playing with him like for 20 years, and we couldn't see each other because he was far away from my home. And so we've tried. I mean, at the time there were a couple of companies advertising for solutions to be able to jam in real time from different locations. So we tried that. Well, we were never able to make it work. Anyway, I think my connection is way too bad to use that kind of tools. But well, it got me thinking about that, and I was thinking, okay, so maybe it doesn't work on the network outside of my house, but would it even work on the local network just between two rooms at home? And that's the way I started writing my first prototype, just to understand and see how the networks could perform. So it was basically really a kind of research project at the beginning. And since it was working pretty well, I started using it just to transmit audio between two rooms at home, or even just two computers close to each other, but to avoid adding some cables. So I had a friend coming to my house after the lockdown to play guitar, and we were doing sessions together, but I only had the one PA connected to one computer. So he was using one computer with Axiom, the guitar software on it, to have his guitar tone. I was using the same on my computer, and they were connected through Ethernet, and we were using connector just to transmit audio. It was, I mean, the latency was so small that he didn't notice it, so that was nice. And yeah, I've been using it this way for 1 or 2 years almost. 1 year and a half.
So in the simplest way, can you explain to us how that works?
So
how does it transmit the signal over Ethernet so fast? How does it navigate between two different DAWs? How could you send from Logic to Studio One, for example, or Cubase? Explain that whole idea, because it seems like a daunting kind of engineering project, especially for somebody working alone.
There are two parts. The first part is getting the audio from the DAW. So that's, since it's a plugin, I mean, it gets the audio, the DAW sends to the plugin. And the second part is to find a way to push audio through the network as fast as possible and without any loss, because you don't want to lose packets, otherwise it's going to create noise. And this part was a bit trickier because, well, Ethernet is not designed for real-time audio. So you have to find tricks just to force it to push packets as fast as possible, since it has to be real-time. So yes, you grab the audio from the DAW and you push it through the Ethernet. On the other side, it's the reverse, where you just grab from Ethernet and push it into the DAW.
And because it's a plugin, it doesn't matter. It's DAW agnostic.
Yeah. Yeah, that's one thing I've always been interested in, is writing software that works almost everywhere if possible, because I don't like the limitations. I don't want to have to think differently just because I chose another DAW. I want to be able to do the same thing everywhere.
You're kind of done some of this work with another product, which is one of the most successful products, plugins on the market, which is Patchwork. Where did that motivation come from?
So initially, I had written another plugin, which was the MB7 mixer, which is a plugin, a multi-band plugin where you can remix the spectrum, basically. So I wanted to add effects to this plugin, and that's where I started working on the ability to host other plugins, third-party plugins, so that I could apply different effects to different bands. And then, well, this one was released, and many people liked it a lot, and they asked, oh, can we have just the hosting part and be able to load plugins and do stuff with it without the multi-band part? And that's where I started working on Patchwork. But I didn't want to do just a plugin host or a wrapper or whatever you call it. I wanted it to be really a tool that was useful. One thing that I was really worried about when working in DAWs is when you want to do some parallel routing, applying effects in parallel, You have well, it takes ages just to create some buses, or I mean, the routing is very complex. So in my requirements, I wanted to be able to do that directly into my plugin. And that's where the idea of the patchwork matrix arrived.
No, that's a very, very successful product. And thank you for making it. I'm sure I speak on behalf of tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands of musicians that are using that tool every day. Well, it's so simple, works great. You can use a preset, you can stack synths. I mean, really, really quite an amazing piece of software.
It's pretty useful, yes, but on my side, it has been a nightmare to support. Because you're between the hammer and the anvil. So you have the host application, you have the plugins, and I'm just in between. And so you have to deal with all the different hosts and all the different plugins and all the combinations. And of course, well, there are problems everywhere. So the nice thing is that it helped me know almost everybody in the industry, because I've been in touch with all the plugin developers and all the host developers out there, just to fix issues or find ways to make the things work. But yeah, it's been. I mean, the first time I released the plugins, I remember I wrote in the documentation, okay, so it's going to work with the Blue Cat Audio plugins. There's no guarantee for any other plugins, and I didn't want to spend too much time just trying to fix bugs from other companies. But then, well, for the next 2 years, I just kept doing only that. So I mean, people wanted it to work, and I wanted it to work too. So. Well, I had to make a decision, and so that's the reason why it took me a while to release other plugins after this one.
But this plugin also talks MIDI, so I mean, didn't you find that would be a kind of a daunting addition to this?
No, because most of my plugins already support MIDI, so it was just a matter of taking the MIDI and pushing it to the plugins inside. So that was actually quite simple.
But then you have the matrix though. So this how do you, just the interface side, it seems like it'll be a challenge for the average person to move that MIDI from one place to the other.
Yeah. So I think, well, I could improve the user interface for that. But well, the way it works is pretty simple. I mean, the audio goes through the matrix just from top down and left to right. And for MIDI, you just have to route MIDI from plugin to plugin. I mean, it's not following the audio, just because usually you don't want to have both MIDI and audio treated by every plugin. So, you have to do your own routing.
Yeah, exactly. Now you talked about MB7, and this is one of the first plugins that made my jaw drop. You have up to 7 bands. Each band you could insert up to 4 plugins, and visually it was stunning. I just want to know, I don't think there's a parallel for this still, but where did this idea come from?
So the initial idea was to experiment with multi-band splitting, just like you have multi-band compressors. But I wanted to do something that was a bit different from that. So the idea at the beginning, because the one you're talking about is version 3 of MB7 Mixer. There were 2 versions before, and the initial idea was to use it as a remixing tool. So you could split audio into several bands, and for each band you could change the panning, the stereo width, the levels, of course. So it was a kind of powerful EQ. And then I had in mind to add some effects in there, and that's where I did the third-party plugins capability. So the idea of extending the remixing tool into a multi-band effect came pretty fast, but it took some time to implement it.
Now, you must get a lot of feedback from people as to how they use it. Does some of that stuff surprise you?
Yeah, but on the MB7 Mixer, most people actually still think in terms of basic things. Like they want to do their own multi-band compressor, basically, most of the time. But some other people have used it for doing multi-band distortion with many crazy tools. And And actually, I've received some audio samples from a few guys. I don't know how they programmed it, but the sounds they were getting from there were really crazy. I mean, completely all over the place with well, yeah, very difficult to describe.
Now speaking of difficult, you work alone. I want to get a sense from you. How difficult is it for you to make these tools?
Um, it depends on the tools. Actually, making the tools is not the biggest challenge. Supporting them and making sure that they work for everybody in all the platforms, that's the challenge. Um, but I mean, and writing and creating the tool is the fun part of it. It's just like creating a new toy for yourself. And the thing is, well, if I had to start from scratch today, I'm not even sure I would do it. But the thing is, I started more than 20 years ago, so I've been building on top of earlier things. So now when I write a plugin, I have like 20 years of experience and also 20 years of code that works, that has been tested, which I can rely on. So I built a huge framework just to make things easier. And that's the way I can create plugins easily today. But starting from scratch would be difficult.
How often do you have a project that you just can't finish, or you're not satisfied with, or it just get mothballed?
The thing is, I never stop, so I will keep trying until it works. Sometimes it may take, like for example, Axiom. It's Axiom with my guitar multi-effect processor is the result of almost 20 years of work, and I've been thinking about it for years. Just for the amp simulation and distortion part, it took me more than 5 years just to get it the way I wanted it. So usually I won't, unless I can prove that it's not possible to do what I want to do. I will keep trying until it works. That's it. Maybe it's going to take 20 years, but we have time.
Axiom, that's a great segue into that product. You love guitar. You're a guitar player. It simulates, all these amplifiers. What takes 5 years? Is it getting it to sound the way you want? Is it putting in the features? Is it getting it to be efficient? What are some of the things that take that kind of time?
It took me almost 5 years just to get it sound right to my ears. Well, sound and feel right. That was the biggest challenge. The thing is, guitar players are crazy about their sound, and we need to be able to have. Well, there's a very special feeling when you play guitar. You want to hear things that nobody else can hear, and even myself, once it's been recorded, I don't hear the same things. So it was definitely a challenge to get it right while playing the guitar. Because one of the reasons why I got into this was that I couldn't find any simulation that sounded good to my ears while playing. It didn't feel good. So that's what took me 5 years. Maybe 1 year or maybe 2 years just to find the right algorithms and what I wanted to do. And then 3 more years just to tweak the parameters. It was a nightmare.
But as you look back on it right now, is it safe to say that you're happy with it?
Oh yeah. Actually, I use it every day. I mean, I've sold all my other gear, and that's the only thing I use. Even on stage, I bring my laptop, my audio interface, and I plug it into it, and I play music with that. So yeah, I'm very happy with it. I still have many ideas to improve it. Of course, we can always improve, but yeah, I'm pretty happy with the results. It took me some time, but now I like playing with it.
It's an absolutely great product. Congratulations. What is it like? You've worked with hundreds and hundreds of people. What is it like to be developing alone? Is it liberating? Is it scary? Is it frustrating? Is it wonderful? How would you characterize, working on a plugin project basically by yourself? Most of the stuff you're doing pretty much by yourself. What's that like for you? Do you ever yearn for, having a big team, or you just so happy the way things are right now in terms of the way you develop?
For pure development, yes, I'm pretty happy with it. The thing I like is freedom. I mean, there's no constraints. You can do whatever you want and keep trying, as I said earlier. It's, however, sometimes frustrating. And that's the reason why I started working with a graphics designer a couple of years ago. Because initially I was doing all the graphics too, but that was frustrating because I wasn't able to do what I wanted to do. I didn't have the skills for that. Working with someone who can do and who can actually create what you have in mind is really helpful. So I'm not 100% alone, but on the development part, yes. And I like it because I like the freedom of it. I like the fact that there's no limit and no limitation.
So you've been doing this for 20 years. What have been some of the big surprises that you've encountered during time running your own software company? What surprised you the most?
I haven't had that many surprises actually. The first surprise was that it became successful and people. I mean, I could live and get a living out of it. That was surprising, but now I got used to it. It's been a while now. Other than that, it's been a long journey, but I mean, it's just like life. Many things happen, but it's not surprising. I don't know how to express that, but I don't think I've had that many surprises over the years.
What do you think people would be surprised about Blue Cat? What do you think people might be surprised about?
Well, I think the fact that it's just a one-man company, and most people don't know it. So actually, I remember a couple of years ago, some people asking how many people were in the company. Like they were suggesting like 50 or more. I said no, it's just me. Of course, I have partners. I mean, you're not alone in this world. I work with music marketing, with IMSTA, with many other companies who help me and who partner with me. But yeah, the company is just me, and I don't think many people know it.
When we first started working with you, Guillaume, some of the more amazing products, and to me, they're still amazing because not a lot of companies are making these types of products or anything equivalent. The stereoscope multi and the frequency analyst multi. Where did you get those ideas from, and how did you get the interface idea? Because the interfaces for both these products are so intuitive. Where did that come from?
So the initial idea, I think, came from a customer because I already had some analyzers. So the freak analyst series are for the spectrum analysis for the frequencies, and the stereoscope series are for the stereo field analysis to locate sound in the stereo field. So I already had some tools that did that, but a customer wanted to be able to do it on several tracks at the same time, and asked me if it was possible. So that's the way I got the idea, and then I wanted to do some more with it, like being able to compute differences between spectrums. Just because I use these tools actually to analyze some hardware and maybe some software to see how it works. So I send signals and I want to be able to analyze that. Typically I use it for my own plugins to be able to verify that they do what they are supposed to do. Yeah, and that's the way it started, as a customer idea, and then adding my own stuff into it because I needed it.
Mm-hmm. And again, just for the layman, you explained the general concept of them being inserted and then being summed in a different instant.
Since you want to analyze several instruments at the same time and just display all the curves at the same time on one single screen, the way it works is you put an instance on every single track you want to analyze, and they're going to communicate with each other and send the results of the analysis to each other, so you can display all the curves in all instances. You just select the ones you want to display. And that's a good way to do some comparisons between the tracks.
It's frankly, it's amazing. I need you to explain to us about late replies. This delay, I mean, I love it. I use it myself. It is perhaps the most complex and sophisticated delay on the market after many years of being available. I just want to know, sort of climb into your head and figure out, where the idea came from. What were you thinking about? Why it has so much How much is too much? Explain it to me. Where did this come from? Late replies.
The initial idea was I wanted to have a delay because I was missing a delay for my guitar playing, and I was well. That's usually the way I like to work. When I'm starting to work on a new topic, I like to create a processor that lets you do everything you need for this particular topic. So that's the way I did my dynamics processors, for example, a couple of years ago. And so for the delay, I wanted to have a tool to let me do any kind of delay, like ping pong delays and all that kind of stuff. And since I already had the plugin and the plugin hosting code ready, I thought maybe it would be nice to be able to load a plugin inside the feedback loop of a delay just to see how it sounds. And that's the way it started. Since I wanted to be able to create many kinds of delay, I did many different types of options here and there. But I've tried to keep it simple if you don't want to get into the details. So that's the reason why it's well, you can hide some parts of the complexity and just load the presets if you want. But I did that afterwards. So the idea was to do the full thing first for me, and then try to hide the complexity and let people get into it through presets. And a couple of years after, I've actually added a very easy interface. So you just load the presets that I've created, and then you adjust the feedback and just a few parameters. It's just like a regular delay, but you have like basically thousands of delays inside. And that's the way I use it now. I mean, I spent like years creating some presets with many effects in there, but now I just load the preset and adjust the delay, and that's it.
For those of you who are not aware, this is the most sophisticated and complex delay on the market still after many years of being released. Plugin Script is a very unique plugin to Blue Cat and to the entire industry. Where did the idea come from? And again, that seems like a very sophisticated, complex, massive kind of undertaking, but you did it in a very elegant and simple way. Where did the idea come from to create that plugin script tool?
So this one again was a tool for myself at the beginning. So I was doing I was teaching some classes, some DSP classes in my engineering school, and so I needed a tool so that the students could write their own plugins and algorithms. So the first year I tried to have them write their own VST plugins in C++, and it was a nightmare. They spent most of their time just trying to get the thing to compile and run, and not focus on the DSP. So that's the reason why I tried to build this tool so that they could really focus on writing the algorithms and learn DSP, not programming. And initially it was in a different language actually, but after a couple of years it was pretty efficient and it worked very well, so I decided to release it to the public as well. And I also use it for myself to prototype algorithms. Actually, the first version of Let's Replies was written with plugin script. It was not as big as the final version, but all the algorithms were prototyped on.
Have you received any feedback from any power users out there?
Yeah, actually, there are a couple of users who have created a group on Facebook where they exchange tips and tricks. And yeah, I've had some pretty good feedback. I know that one of the users have been able to quit his day job just to do his plugins using plugin script, and so he's earning his living out of it. That's really nice. And there are a couple of really power users who are releasing some crazy instruments and effects out there. So that's a lot of fun to see the thing grow by itself.
Wow, congratulations, man. That's awesome. That must give you a very, very good feeling of satisfaction.
Yeah. Actually, these guys are really power users, so they keep asking for new features, which is nice, but it's sometimes difficult to do what they want me to do.
Now, Acoufiend is another very interesting product. It's a feedback tool. And my question to you really is, How does it work?
It's simpler than what you would expect. So myself, at the beginning, just to explain how it comes from, where it comes from, I've tried to replicate the actual physics of the feedback. So mainly for guitar at the beginning, but you can use it for other things. And trying to add some feedback loops in the circuits, in the DSPs, between the output of the amp and the input and all that stuff. And it didn't work. I mean, it was really impossible to simulate it this way. And so the way it works now is just it adds, so it detects the pitch of the notes which are played. Even if it's a chord, it's going to detect the kind of chord it is. And it's going to generate some harmonics on top of that. And since it's going to be higher harmonics, it's just like when you have feedback. Instead of doing a resonance, it just adds, it simulates, it synthesizes the harmonics that would be created by the actual physical feedback in the real world.
And how is the duration of that and the depth of that and the volume of that controlled?
So that's the tricky part. You can set up, you can customize the actual volume, but the tricky part is the detection when people are playing or stopping. You need to start the feedback only when the notes are not moving anymore, when the note is being sustained. And then if you are moving the fingers on the board and changing notes, you have to stop the feedback naturally too. So there is some specific detection algorithm to detect that. And you can tweak the parameters too, depending on the way you play.
Right. Very, very powerful. And again, I don't believe there's anything out there like that. You have a lot of unique plugins, and I just want to let everybody know, go out and try these things. There's still not a lot like what Guillaume is doing with Blue Cat. So a lot of what you're doing really still ties back to your love of physics. I imagine physics is still, embedded in a lot of your algorithms and actually your thinking.
I never thought about it this way, but you're right. Yes. Yeah. I mean, and basically the way physics, the science works is you try to understand how it works in the physical world, and you try to create a model and equations. And the only additional part here is that you have to put these equations into a computer. So that's the additional part. But yeah, it's all related to physics. That's right.
You are a technology company in the great nation of France. What are some of the pluses, minuses, joys, sadness of working in France developing software?
I don't know if there are that many differences between countries nowadays. I mean, regarding technology, Blue Cat Audio has been an internet company from the beginning, so always been involved and been working with people all over the world. So I mean, with internet now, the world is a bit more open. I think it would have been different like 30 years ago, where you had to send floppy disks by mail. Now, I think the differences between countries are maybe less of a problem, especially for tech companies. Maybe the main issue I would see here is the slowness of the deployment of optic fiber. I'm still waiting for it. So that's a bit of a problem when you have to upload gigabytes of data. But otherwise, I think it has become a small world.
You've done a lot of collaboration despite working alone and creating much of your code alone. Tell us some about those collaborations that you've had. IMSTA, music marketing, you've mentioned. What are some of the other ones?
So I've been collaborating with many other companies in the audio world, like the companies doing the host applications, the DAWs, like Steinberg, Avid, or also smaller companies, like many plugin companies. As I said earlier, just to make Patchwork happen, I had to contact every single developer on earth almost. And with most of them, I mean, we work together just to make the whole thing work. And to find the bugs and fix them. So that was really a great collaboration over the years. And I also collaborate with my graphics designer. He has his own company. I mean, partnerships in this industry are really key, and that's, I mean, meeting people is the way you develop the business, and the way you develop also your knowledge.
For a lot of people watching this, they are aspiring developers, maybe they're users. For the people that are aspiring to develop, how important is it to have a knowledge or some help marketing stuff as opposed to just being a developer? Do you need to collaborate with different people on the selling side? Where do you sit on that?
You can do the best product you want. If there's no one to use it or to hear about it, you won't sell it. So definitely on the marketing side, I mean, it's difficult to be good, I think, on all sides. So that's where you need to find partners to help you, and that's one of the reasons why I've been collaborating with you, Ray, is to help getting the word spread. And I mean, it's pretty difficult to do that alone. Especially, I think the worst person in the world to advertise for a product is the guy who did the product, because you're seeing the product from the inside, not from the outside. So it's really tough to explain people what it does without getting into the technical things. Yeah, I think it's definitely worth having partners and people to work with on the marketing side and communication in general.
As you know, IMSTA has been trying to do this buy the software use message and piracy education for many years. What do you think of it? Do you think there is any point to it? Do you think it's a losing game? Do you think it helps? Do you want to encourage IMSTA to continue doing it? What's your take on that? How do you sit on that?
Well, I think it's still relevant nowadays, and it's still very important to educate people to show them that, well, if they buy software, it's not to make some millionaires getting some more millions. I mean, it's many small companies and people like me just helping them create new products and keep doing what they're doing. I mean, if people stop buying software, well, there won't be any software. That's as simple as that. So it's definitely important to buy what you're using.
What impact has the COVID-19 pandemic had on your business? You see an uptake or downtake? What has been the experience?
So I've clearly seen a huge impact, at least at the beginning. I remember in March, the traffic on the website doubled. Just like people were getting back on the internet and trying to find stuff to do, I guess. And I've also seen many very old customers. I mean, people who were early customers back in maybe 2003 and 4, who came back and asking for updates. So it seems they were getting back to music again. And so, it was nice to see people spending time doing more music. And so it also increased the sales and support as well. So I had many questions. People had time to ask questions. So it was a bit difficult to answer all questions on time. But definitely it had an impact. But now it's back to normal, I would say, almost. But for a whole year, there was really many more people buying, asking questions, and hopefully doing music.
So what's next for Blue Cat? I mean, have you conquered everything? You've invented everything you need. It's done. You're closing shop and just go to the beach. Anything else you're planning to do?
As I said, I think, I mean, you keep learning until you die, hopefully. So there are still thousands of things I want to do in the future, and probably many more I don't even know about right now. But I have a few ideas for the next couple of years. I have this network thing with Connector. I have some plugging, hosting things with the Patchwork and all these tools. And so I have a couple of ideas to help people collaborate through network and do music together. And I also have tons of requests to improve the existing plugins and software. So there will be probably some more improvements regarding the integration with hardware, because it's really nice to be able to control the software with MIDI controllers and that kind of things. So there's still room for improvement there. and probably many surprises, because I mean sometimes the idea of a product just come this way, and a few months later it's going to be released. So who knows?
And to a lot of the aspiring developers, programmers, young people right now watching this, they want to be where you are. They want to create plugins. They want to contribute. What's your advice? What do you say to them?
First thing is do what you like, have fun with it. Otherwise, you won't be able to get very far. The other thing is be perseverant, never stop. I mean, keep trying. If you like what you do, there's a chance somebody else in the world is going to like it too. So keep doing it until somebody hears about it, and try as much as you can. Never stop. Just do it.
And I want to give you a chance to talk to all your customers out there. I speak on their behalf. The products are fantastic. What do you say? Speak to them directly, Guillaume.
Well, first, thank you for supporting me and helping me create new products. Thank you for your feedback too, because that's very helpful. That's the way I can learn from you guys, and the products can get improved. And please do more and more music, and feel free to send me what you're doing, because in the end that's what we're all doing. I mean, I'm doing this job for people to do their music, and to share their music with other people. I mean, it's all about sharing.
All right, man. Take care. Good luck.
Bye bye.
Okay, bye bye.